Good evening and welcome to NewsNight. Tonight we'll have all your international, national, and local news. I'm Melissa Mandarak.
And I'm Cora Polanski. Both the longest government shutdown and the longest ongoing protest ended this week. Learn about why they ended and the effects it will have on the masses.
Despite the shutdown ending and SNAP benefits resuming, organizations across Pittsburgh have taken charge to combat food insecurity.
All this and more coming up on NewsNight.
The streets of Lisbon have flooded with tens of thousands of protesters in the last week to fight workers' rights that are at risk under the proposed labor laws. The government has introduced legislation that would give employers more ease in firing. It also restricts compassionate leave that would include bereavement for mothers suffering from miscarriages. CGTP, Portugal's largest union, describes the reforms as, quote, one of the greatest attacks ever made against workers, end quote. With this statement came the announcement for a general strike that would begin December 11th. It is predicted that the bill will pass with the support of Chega, the far-right party. Protesters also hope for higher wages or an increased minimum wage. Portugal is one of the poorest countries in Western Europe. At least 50% of workers earned a wage of less than 1,000 euros each month last year.
On Tuesday, a Ukrainian anti-corruption agency, NABU, said it detained 5 people and identified 7 other suspects in a major graft investigation. The investigation is centered on about $100 million in the country's energy sector being misused in a kickback scheme. NABU did not name the suspects in its statement, but said they included a businessman believed to be the mastermind behind the scheme, a former advisor to the country's energy minister, and an executive of the national atomic energy company Energoatom. Large amounts of Ukrainian and foreign funds have been put into the energy sector as infrastructure has been repaired repeatedly following relentless Russian aerial attacks. President Volodymyr Zelensky says, quote, everyone who has been involved in corruption schemes must receive a clear legal response. There must be criminal verdicts, end quote. Zelensky's comments come just months after he was forced to reverse plan to curb NABU's independence following widespread protests. Eradicating corruption remains a crucial condition for Ukraine's European Union membership bid, a goal Kyiv views as central to its post-war future.
The BBC's Director General Tim Davie and the head of news, Deborah Turnus, resigned after President Trump's criticism and threat of legal action, a lawsuit of $1 billion against the editing of an episode of their Panorama documentary series. A leaked internal memo revealed that the Panorama program edited 2 parts of one of his speeches together to insinuate his encouragement of the January 6th Capitol riot in 2021. These resignations have since left a vacuum of leadership at the organization. The BBC has since retracted the report.
Airlines have canceled more than 9,000 flights across the U.S. since the Federal Aviation Administration ordered flight cuts last week. The FAA ordered the cuts to ease demand on control towers that are short-staffed due to the federal government shutdown. Initially, the FAA ordered 4% of flights to be canceled at 40 of the biggest airports in the U.S. On Tuesday, they increased that number to 6%, causing another 1,200 flights to be canceled on that day. The cuts will increase to 10% on Friday, even as the shutdown nears an end. The Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy says the cuts won't go away until safety measurements improve and staffing levels stabilize at air traffic control facilities. The longest government shutdown in U.S. history ended just last night after 6 weeks. Reporter Samantha Myrick reports on the Senate's passed funding package and the impact it will have on U.S. citizens. Sam?
That's right, Cora. The 43-day federal shutdown ended last night after President Trump signed the House-approved government funding package. This shutdown-ending bill broke party lines in the Senate, with multiple Democrats siding with Republican senators, voting 221 to 209, despite many Democrats being unitedly opposed to the package, as the bill did not extend the Affordable Care Act enhanced tax credits. The bill will extend funding for military construction, veteran affairs, the Department of Agriculture, the Food and Drug Administration, and the legislative branch. The bill will also resume fully funded SNAP benefits for the remainder of the fiscal year. Federal government workers will now work with pay, and firings that happened during the shutdown will be reversed. It is unclear how quickly airports will recover once the funding bill passes. Another key part of the bill is, quote, no federal funds may be used to initiate, carry out, implement, or otherwise notice a reduction in force to the number of employees within any department, agency, or office of the federal government, end quote.
Former NFL player and ex-Steeler Antonio Brown was arrested in Dubai last week for a murder in Miami that he allegedly committed in May. Following his arrest, he was flown to New Jersey, where he is awaiting extradition to Florida. His lawyer, Mike Eiglarsh, has already submitted a plea that Brown is not guilty. Brown claims that the altercation came out of self-defense. The accusation places Brown with a handgun and firing twice at Zulkarnain Kwame Nantambu. Eiglarsh said, quote, Brown was attacked that night and acted within his legal right to protect himself, end quote. The justification of his actions in the incident comes from the stance that multiple people had jumped Brown and tried to steal his jewelry. Brown has a history of violent behavior that has resulted in legal battles and his exit from the NFL while playing for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
This past Friday, U.S. District Judge Karen Immergut issued a permanent injunction against the Trump administration from sending the National Guard to Portland, Oregon, NBC reports. Judge Immergut found there was no rebellion, nor that there was a threat of one, deeming it unnecessary to deploy the National Guard. Many other government officials were in favor of the ruling, like Oregon Governor Tina Kotek, as well as California Attorney General Ron Bonta, who is also fighting the Trump administration on the deployment of the National Guard in California. Trump's administration can appeal the motion if they choose, however, they have yet to make a move. Coming up after the break, a 3-year strike, the longest in U.S. history, has ended. And as Thanksgiving rounds the corner, learn what a certain organization is doing to uplift the holidays. Don't go away.
This past Monday marked a victory for striking journalists of the Newspaper Guild with the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. They have been on strike for just over 3 years now. The Third Circuit Court of Appeals says that the PG bargained in bad faith while working on a new contract. The newspaper announced on Monday that they will appeal the decision. In their statement, they said, quote, if allowed to stand, this decision will likely force the closure of the Post-Gazette, end quote. Workers had gone on strike to protest the working conditions proposed by the PG. The new contract would have ended a guaranteed 40-hour work week, replaced health care with a weaker and more expensive option, unfair labor practices, among other lost benefits. Only 26 people remain in the Guild, as opposed to the original 60 from October 2022. This week, they have celebrated their efforts fighting for a free press that is not subject to the exploitation of workers' rights.
On Saturday, a 64-year-old man was found dead in his home in Brighton Heights due to a fire. The fire was reported around 5 a.m. on Parvish Street. Firefighters arrived to flames and heavy smoke billowing from the house. After learning that an occupant may have still been inside, firefighters searched the home until they found him dead in a bedroom on the second floor. The fire was put out by 7 a.m. and was ruled an accident. The man's identity has not been revealed to the public.
This past Saturday, November 8th, Pittsburgh held its annual Veterans Day Parade, an annual event that has been occurring since 1919, making it one of the United States' oldest and longest-running parades. The parade began at 10:30 a.m. and ran along Liberty Avenue downtown. Parade goers lined either side of Liberty Ave to pay tribute to veterans of all ages and units. Also featured were vintage military vehicles as well as local school bands and cheer teams for crowds to enjoy. Point Park's Day of Giving series not only brought fun, but monetary donations to programs throughout the university. Reporter Juliana Brock gives us the report. Jules?
Past Thursday was Point Park University's 4th annual Day of Giving, and they reached 104% of their $350,000 goal. Here's a recap of all of the Day of Giving events this year.
It is the single most important day of the year for us to rally the troops from tens of thousands of alumni across the country, our board of trustees, our leadership team, to support and invest in our students.
Leading up to Day of Giving was a live podcast event with the hosts of the Two Jagoffs podcast, featuring Point Park faculty and American professional wrestler Andrew Palace. Next was a live music event with Pioneer Records.
So we had a couple student musicians and an alum musician. Again, another amazing opportunity to see how talented our students and alumni are at Point Park. Our last campus community event where we had a thank you card tabling, really to just highlight what's happened so far for Day of Giving. Students can write thank you cards to donors and really show their support for the big day.
We have, big plans for next year and the year after that, but this year I feel a difference. Everyone is just so behind it, from the students, student groups, all of our peers in the schools and departments. We couldn't be more grateful and appreciative to our peers and colleagues across the campus. They have been pushing this and, amplifying the message, and they're doing a great job.
Next November is the 5th annual Day of Giving, but if you want to donate before then, you can go to pointpark.edu/givenow. Here in the Pittsburgh Playhouse, reporting for UView Television, I'm Juliana Brock.
Mayor Ed Gainey made his final State of the City speech on Monday, where he looked back at his single term as mayor and his final budget for the city, which Mayor-elect Corey O'Connor will inherit part of. Many members of the city council are still unsatisfied with the budget, saying it does not tackle the issues of Pittsburgh's aging vehicle fleet and overtime pay, considering the NFL draft is approaching in April. Still, though, Gainey seemed triumphant during his speech, talking about his accomplishments with the $600 million investment in downtown, the Stop the Violence program, and overall how, quote, "we chose people over politics. We chose action over excuses. And because of those choices, our city is stronger, more fair, and more resilient than when I walked into this office." Gainey's remarks are available to rewatch in full on the City Channel Pittsburgh YouTube channel.
2 suspects of an attempted robbery that happened in Oakland over the weekend remain at large. According to Pittsburgh and University of Pittsburgh police, a group of students were almost robbed on Atwood Street at 2:10 a.m. early Sunday morning. The group of Pitt students were allegedly approached by 2 masked men who then started aggressively asking the students for money and even flashed a firearm at the group. Residents can contact the Pittsburgh or University of Pittsburgh police to report any helpful information.
A local restaurant is providing 500 meals to those in need this Thanksgiving. Frank and Jennifer Vitale, the owners of Cucina Vitale restaurant in Green Tree, are continuing their Harvest of Hope initiative this year, but with more to give back. This past Sunday, the Vitales hosted a wine dinner and auction with local restaurants to collect food for the meals. They estimate to prepare 500 to be delivered this year. Jennifer Vitale told WTAE, quote, "Frank and I are both in recovery and giving back and being of service to. That's something that the world record breaker of the most world records is back, beating his previous record. Also, Pittsburgh's weather can't make up its mind. Learn your local weather update after the break.
Serial record breaker David Rush, who holds the record for most world records broken, has done it again. His most recent feat this week was riding a unicycle for 10 seconds while holding 7 bowling balls. His other records include balancing 101 rolls of toilet paper on his head and the most apples sliced on a pogo stick. The motivation behind all of it is to promote STEM education. Passion and persistence in difficult situations is the common theme behind every extravagant quest he finds himself in. Rush says, quote, "Whether it's building robots, designing sensors, or yes, snapping cucumbers at world record speed, it all ties back to creativity and problem solving," end quote. Leaves are changing, the sun sets earlier, and flurries are seen more often. Pittsburgh is finally in the fall swing. Get an update on your week with weather reporter Jeff Kostelnik. Jeff?
I'm outside of Academic Hall, enjoying this beautiful day that we're having. It's a little warmer than it has been the last few days. We did experience some snow flurries earlier this week, but today feels like a true fall day. We can expect a high of 56 degrees and a low of 44 degrees heading into the night. Now to weekly weather. Most of the week will stay in the 40s and 50s and will be relatively cloudy with some sun peeking through. Saturday, however, will have bouts of thunderstorms in the early evening. Sunday and Monday will have high wind speeds up to 20 miles per hour. Tuesday and Wednesday will be basically the same, with low wind speeds and both 49 degrees. Thursday will have a full circle moment with rain throughout the day. Make sure to bundle up and get your winter clothes out because the cold is here to stay. This has been Jeff Kostelnik reporting our weekly weather report for UView Television. Now back to the studio.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of NewsNight. If you want to see more, check out our social media pages on both Facebook and Instagram at UView Television.
You can also check out more episodes on our YouTube channel or visit our website uview.pointpark.edu. I'm Cora Polanski.
And I'm Melissa Mandarak. From everyone here at NewsNight, thank you for watching and have a great evening.